What's up, guys? So, how's everyone doing? Today I'm going to do something new and utilize the live stream. I've done this a few times with just the boxing, but as you can read in the title, I want to ask your opinion. A lot of my content is fight oriented, started off MMA, boxing as well. This has to do with the UFC events that just took place this weekend. And we'll start with the Miles Johns fight. This guy, he fought Vince Morales. It's not necessarily what happened in the fight. It was a bit of a lackluster performance. If you watch either one of these guys fight, you'd agree with me. Johns got the victory. It's not, like I said, not necessarily what he did in the fight, but more about what he said after the fight. And he, in reference to the head coach and owner of Glory MMA, James Krause, his cornerman, not being there. And it kind of caused a lot of rumors online. If you go to Reddit, type in James Krause on Reddit. Also, there's a Twitter thread. And I'm sure you guys have thought about this before, about it makes you beg the question on the power play and the power dynamic of coaching, specifically a combat sport. And are these coaches abusing power in relationship to, I don't know, maybe intimacy? I don't know that. And that's the second half of this conversation. The first half is let's just talk about what Miles Johns said. And I'm just going to read you from verbatim from ESPN.com. And the headline, James Krause pulled from the Miles Johns corner. And it all stems from the gambling probe. It all stems from a couple weeks back. The UFC announced pretty randomly this announcement about how fighters, coaches, camps, anybody affiliated with the UFC, they're no longer allowed to bet on the fights. They're not allowed to bet on the fighters. And this is quite interesting when this announcement was made, due to the fact that UFC has a gambling show. You can watch it on UFC Fight Pass. Gambling is legal now in most parts of the United States. Down here in Australia, gambling is pretty much part of the culture. So when you look at the UFC being promoted by gambling companies, having commercials promoting the gamblers, all the fighters now say when they win fights, say this is, go to bets.com, fill in the blank. It makes you wonder what. It's pretty wild that they made that announcement. It makes you think, like, what the hell happened for the UFC to issue a statement that the fighters were no longer allowed to bet on the fights. And it came out that a few weeks back, James Krause, one of his fighters, was fighting. And in the last few hours before the fight, it was the Derek Minner Nurmagomedov fight. Pardon me for not pronouncing the name right. I don't have the notes in front of me, but it was Derek Minner. And allegedly, all of this money, which started off as an even fight in terms of the betting odds, I think Minner might even been slightly favored. All of a sudden, the commission saw all of this late money going against Minner. And then audio came out that Krause was telling people to go heavy on Minner to lose. And now this is one of Krause's guys. And so whether it's Krause, who's his coach, knows that Derek is going in there with an injury, that's one thing. For him to then give that information to bettors to make money, that's another thing. But then also to bet against your own fighter, that's a whole different ballgame now. Now we're talking something that in my opinion, what makes the internet sleuths, people like you guys, look back now at all of Krause's fighters, all of the fights he's ever cornered. You got to look at all of the kind of iffy decisions he's ever made in a corner with his fights, telling a fighter who's clearly losing a fight that they're up on the cards in the last round. You have Megan Anderson coming out saying that, her championship fight camp with Glory was less than professional. And it just makes you think, if a coach could bet against his own fighter on one fight just for the money, how often was he doing this? And this was the reason that Miles Johns said what he said after his fight this week, and that Krause was pulled from the UFC. Actually, it was the commission. His exact words were that there's an investigation. Krause was scheduled to be in Johns' corner for his fight with Morales, but was not present. Johns won UD and explained in his post-fight interview that the UFC pulled Krause and the promotion was suspending him. Sources told ESPN.com that Krause has not been formally suspended by anyone, but the UFC and the NSAC, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, concluded that Krause should not be cornering fighters while a UFC bout he was involved in, the Shailan Nurbin-Becca versus Derek Minner fight I aforementioned, November 5th, is under investigation. Krause was informed of that decision Friday night at the dinner table, Miles Johns said. Earlier Saturday, the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement sent a bulletin to the state's licensed sports books instructing them to not offer wagering on any fight in which Krause is involved in as a coach, trainer, promoter, or fighter. That is wild. That's saying that is going over the UFC's head and going basically making, imagine if you're the UFC and you find this out from outside sources, from a third-party source, that there's fights that are taking place under your banner that the public can't bet on due to the actions of one of the gyms. And so this is what led to the UFC jumping in there. The Las Vegas-based betting integrity firm US Integrity launched an investigation due to that Minner fight after several sports books in multiple states reported suspicious wagering on that fight. The betting line on the fight saw a huge shift in the hours leading up to it, including cash pouring in on Nurbin-Becca, the favorite, to win by knockout in the first round and for the fight to last fewer than 2.5 rounds, according to US Integrity. Krause coaches Minner and was in his corner for that contest. And the fight, Minner threw a kick with his left leg early in the first round. It landed, but Minner then came up lame, grimacing and reaching down to grab his leg. Nurbin-Becca came forward, and Minner threw another kick with his left leg before essentially covering up and getting knocked down. Nurbin-Becca quickly finished him with elbows on the ground to earn a first-round TKO. Minner was apparently injured going into the bout, and rumors about that evidently spread among bettors. Krause is a former and retired UFC fighter and highly regarded coach at Glory MMA. It's in Missouri, openly involved in the MMA gambling world. He hosts the 1% Club wagering podcast and a popular Discord channel that features his betting tips. Krause has yet to comment on the matter. It just makes you wonder, though, like I said, he's doing that on that fight. I mean, there's one thing with telling people in your circle that, it's insider information, basically. That's one thing, which is obviously an issue. But to bet and go heavy against one of your own is another issue. And then you got the thing that's happening right now with Megan Anderson. Like I said, she's come out publicly about the lack of professionalism at Glory MMA, but also accusing Krause of having an affair. Krause is married, and she basically tweeted that if you guys want to know more about that, you should ask Sanko, referencing Laura Sanko. All this stuff is public domain, so you can find this stuff online. And there's actually an article in Sports Manor. Did Laura Sanko have an affair with Coach Krause? Megan Anderson's comments go wild and get crazy reactions from UFC fans. I'll leave those links in these notes. You can check those out. It just has you wondering, I wonder what other stories could come out from this. I don't think this is the end of it. Krause hasn't tweeted since the beginning of November, which tells me that he knew something was coming. That's usually how these things work. Whenever there's an investigation or a probe into something like of this magnitude, something in the public eye, it's usually the rite of passage for the investigative committee to give the person a notice. And so you look on his socials, hasn't posted, hasn't created any content. And it's just interesting how this is going to play out. Speculation on the Sanko rumors, look into it. The gambling stuff seems pretty legit. Leave your comments below if you think that Krause is a good or bad guy. I don't know how you feel about him. I have my own opinions, and I'll reserve them for later. Also, if anyone watching this has any stories from other MMA gyms throughout the world of, coaches taking advantage of their power, leave the comments below, and maybe we'll do a video on it, because it's something, myself being a writer, journalist, I'm interested in that sort of stuff. I think that's a saucy story. If you like this video, share it, leave your comments below. This is a new thing. We'll see how these live streams go. Talk to you soon. Flex on them. Thanks, guys.